Welcome to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann. We are now in season 5, and we've changed the name and the focus of the podcast. Rev Up Your Business is the podcast for small to medium-sized business owners, entrepreneurs, and HR professionals. Each week, we share tips, strategies, and trends on how you can build success in your business. I share my expertise as a people-centric leader in work culture and human resources. My guests share their expertise in human resources, marketing, sales, finance, IT, leadership, and the multiple facets that you need to take care of your business. If you love to learn and want to find out how you can rev up your business, join us. Welcome to another episode of Rev Up Your Business. Today we're going to talk about recruiting. Do you have trouble finding staff? Is it one of your biggest HR headaches that keeps you up at night? The focus of today is recruiting, and my guest is Jason Noble. Jason Noble is the founder and CEO of Noble Search Group, a Toronto-based management and executive search firm that provides complete peace of mind recruiting service. So we'll get into what that really means. After 25 years in sales, marketing, and finance in the corporate world, he pivoted about 5 years ago to his true calling in recruiting by leveraging his passion for helping people and solving puzzles. When he's not running, working out, reading a good nonfiction book, watching sports or a documentary, he's spending time with his family. I'd like to welcome Jason. Thanks for coming on our show today.
Thanks, Hilda, for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it too. So thanks, Jason, for coming on, because I want to talk about recruiting in general, because this is the biggest headache that we have. And then I want to talk about a piece of legislation that quietly announced itself in July, and some people still don't know about it, in regards to recruiting agencies and the fact that they need to be licensed. And we'll get into that. But first, I want to really talk about what you see are some of the concerns that people have in terms of recruiting. Like, why do people quit? What do you hear as the reasons that people leave a company?
It's not it's been going on for a long time. It's not rocket science. The reasons people leave, it's varied, but fundamentally there are 5 different reasons. One of which is, you don't like your boss. Mm-hmm. There's usually some sort of conflict, and that involves people looking for something different. There's money. Money is always a key driver for someone to leave. Work-life balance is also very important, especially since, COVID came around. More and more people, particularly younger, are looking for the opportunity to work, maybe not 100% remote, but there's quite a number of people that only want to be in the office 1, maybe 2 days a week. So that's becoming very, very important, again, particularly for younger generations. Security is another factor. And now we're seeing, over the past year, a lot of layoffs. People are very, very interested in something that provides more security. Look, nothing's guaranteed these days. But a company that offers potentially more security to them, even if it's in the public service or whatever, that's what people are very interested in. And the last thing is, and this is very important, a lot of people don't think about it, is someone who doesn't feel challenged. Yes. So when you're in the same role for years, you're doing the same routine over and over and over again, your brain can shut off. Yeah. And what happens is you become complacent and you become bored. And, at that point, some people may be thinking about looking for different opportunities. Last year, in fact, I recruited someone who had been in the same role for 17 years. Look, he loved his company, loved what he did, but it was the same thing over and over, day in, day out. And he wanted something different. And what I presented him with was a brand new opportunity. So those are the reasons.
Okay. I know myself, like when my husband and I started our engineering company, typically back then, people would be doing the same thing from the day they started. And 2 years later, they'd say, okay, it's time for a change. Yeah. And my husband said, no, I don't want that. I want people to see opportunity where they work. and
Yeah.
that 2 year itch part isn't thinking I got to go somewhere else that they can find it. I want to share. There's this one person who did a study informally over 10 years, and every time he'd ask these people that are looking for a job, so why are you leaving? And he amassed, like 8,000 people over the 10 years. And he said the top 3 reasons people leave were bad bosses, toxic workplace, and lack of challenge. Literally lack of challenge. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
you see a lot of people come and go, and you ask them those questions. So thank you for giving those statistics to people.
Yeah, and just on that point, it's worthwhile, particularly if you're a bigger business, take the time to find out why people are leaving. Now, oftentimes when someone's already tendered their resignation, they're maybe 1.5 feet out the door. They're gone. But use the opportunity to find out what areas you can improve in, and keep it very impersonal. Like, don't take it
Yeah.
personally when someone's leaving. Just find out what could we have done,
Hmm.
because it is tough to hold on to someone once they've resigned. There are counter offers made, but I never recommend it because, mentally someone's checked out. And, in a lot of companies, really, within 6 to 12 months, that person ends up leaving again, anyways, whether by on their own or the company gets rid of them.
Yeah. And by that time, you're not going to fight for them anymore. That this is it,
No,
right?
no, it's done.
But I think that's a great piece of strategy. Any other strategies that you have that could help clients um, to even look for new people once somebody's gone? How do clients then start to look for replacements?
So that's a good question. There's a few ways you can try and get ahead of the curve. One is, you can create a talent pool on your own. So the talent pool can be done through your employees. So you can build up a pool of potential people to step in right away. There's your network as well, which is always recommended. I'm a big believer in leveraging your network.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
other thing too is, tap into someone like myself. Recruiters are great sources of candidates, and build and maintain a relationship with us, because we may have someone. If your network and your employees don't have anyone, we may, and if we don't, we can easily help find someone because we've got the reach. The last thing you can do as well is, you can also just have something on your website where people can submit their resume. Now, that's a little tougher to do, particularly if you're smaller, not well known. The big companies, not a problem. Google, Microsoft, they get like
Yeah. Yeah.
thousands of resumes. But if you're small, you're not going to get that. I strongly recommend, if you're a small company, again, leverage your network, leverage your employees, build relationships with someone like me. I think those are your 3 best bets.
So in the introduction, I shared that you are Toronto based and you do management and executive search firm that provides complete peace of mind recruiting services. What does that mean? Complete peace of mind, because that sounds wonderful.
So what that means fundamentally is, in recruiting always involves headaches because you're dealing with people. you there's
That's true. People
there's
are not predictable.
no and exactly, people
Not
and
like buying
processes
lemonade, right?
they're never predictable. So that invariably that involves a headache. And so what I do is, my whole value proposition is, I assume the headache. I take the headache away from my clients, because, let's be honest, no one likes recruiting. I like it, but my clients don't. So,
Right. Okay.
and a lot of them, when they post a job, what happens is they end up getting, on LinkedIn or Indeed, for example, they get an avalanche of applicants, and they don't have the time nor the resources to be able to deal with hundreds and hundreds of applicants. It's way too much to deal with. And the other thing too is, Sometimes, depending on the role, you don't want to leave it up to chance as to who you hire, because when you post a job, you're only considering the people that apply. Where I bring it to, so I would liken it to you order a pizza. When you post a job, you're literally only getting half the pizza. When you bring me in, you're getting the other half. So I provide you the full pizza, because what I do is I go and I headhunt people.
Yeah.
So instead of leaving
And if I
people
can
up,
just pause there,
yeah,
by headhunting, what I want to explain here is that you are looking for people that are already happy in their jobs.
right,
And you're trying to share with them this new opportunity. When people are applying to you, it's because they're not happy in their jobs. So sometimes you actually get a better candidate when they're actually not looking. So I just want to put that
yeah,
in there,
that's
because some people don't realize what recruiters do. They just don't look for applicants that are looking. You look for applicants that could fill the spot.
right, right, and oftentimes, and thank you for that. Oftentimes, there are people who are excellent employees. They're very happy, and they're just doing their job. They're not considering looking elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone like me comes and presents them with an opportunity, that's where the spark starts, and they, and that's where the consideration happens. But going back to the whole peace of mind is, so my whole value proposition is taking care of the entire search from start to finish. And that includes starting from just vetting the job description, talking with all stakeholders to make sure everyone's aligned on what an ideal candidate looks like. And that's really important, because if you're not aligned in the beginning, you're not going to agree who you're looking for, and it's going to waste time. And then my process also includes looking for candidates, vetting them through a three-stage interview process, psychometric assessment, a background check. So that involves looking at any criminal history or anything like that, and then also reference check. And so from start to finish, I take care of that. I provide them with biweekly updates so that they know what's going on. I provide them with unlimited support so they can reach me at any time, anytime they have questions. And then I also provide them with a guarantee after the fact. So they don't have to worry that, heaven forbid, the person doesn't work out, which is rare. I'm there to provide a replacement.
Now, um, do you focus primarily then on management and executives level searches, or do you do others?
So I focus on management and executive. I will also cater to professionals. So because my background is in sales, marketing, and finance, I'm fortunate enough to be able to leverage my skills in those areas. So I know when I'm talking to people, I know exactly what to speak to them about, whether there's any sort of BS going on. So I can focus on sales professionals. I get it. I can ask them about their technique and just hear what's going on in their approach. So
But
the
I find that
nuances.
so important too, because as I said, my
It
husband
is.
and I had an engineering company, but
Yeah.
I knew my husband when he was in engineering school, so I kind of knew a lot. And people would sit down, and when we're waiting for everybody to assemble for the interview, they would start talking about their engineering stuff. And I said, I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
everybody's not here yet, so let's, why don't you just wait until everybody gets here? But I think it does help when an HR professional knows enough about that industry that they're hiring for, so that
Right.
they know whether the technical aspects at a high level are good enough. They don't need to know the detail level, but they really do need to understand and appreciate the
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 skills and experience that you need in order to, be a good fit for the job.
Mhm,
Equally
mhm.
though, and you probably see this as well in your listeners. It's really also important to focus on cultural fit.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
how's the person going to fit in with not only your manager, your colleagues, and then the people that report into you? Because if you're someone who's a micromanager and your team just and your culture isn't like that at all, that's not going to work out very well. It's going to
No,
end very, very badly.
recipe for disaster.
Disaster. And there's all sorts of things that happen, right? And people say, well, I'm not a micromanager, but when you put someone in a role, that person can actually become that, because maybe you're a control freak.
Yeah,
And if you're a
yeah,
control freak,
yeah.
you want to micromanage
You,
potentially.
you mentioned that you do psychometric assessments, so I'm just curious to know what kind of tools you like to use.
So I've used McQuaig.
Hmm.
Um, I like that because you can customize to a particular role and into a company. So it's not necessarily the same for everyone. The thing I love most about, and this is applicable to all to most, if not all, psychometric assessments.
Yep.
They measure your innate capabilities, so who you are. And it's amazing. I think I've done 4 or 5 of them, and they're all bang on. I look at them, it's like, yeah, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. it's it's incredible, but it really it's your who you are, and you don't even realize it.
And what I love about psychometric assessments is that it is objective. It's
Yeah,
science based. It's not your friend telling you, "Oh yeah, you're really good.
yeah,
You'd be super for that job," right?
yeah,
It's about having external. I've done a lot of different assessments myself, and the one I really like is Fascination Advantage, because unlike many of the others, which are psychometric, looking at how you see the world, this one looks at how the world sees you and how you come across. So if you're a
yeah,
micromanager, it's going to say you're a micromanager when you're stressed, because we don't necessarily always get into our ugly stage, if you want to call it that. But when you're stressed, that good quality you have of being decisive becomes dogmatic,
yeah,
or when you're a passionate type of person, in the stress of the moment, you become more like emotional, and
yeah.
in a difficult kind of way. So I love that the Fascination Advantage looks at both your strengths, but also tells you when those strengths can be under stress. They can become kind of a little bit of a difficult aspect of what you are.
And
Yeah.
that's very true, because it's really like under stress is where you see people's true colors come out, and that's why it's important to understand that. That's why I'm a big believer in psychometric assessments. But I also want to point out, psychometric assessments should not be the sole decision factor. Like, you
No.
shouldn't look at a report and say, oh yeah, based on this I'm going to hire the person. You should be, it's one data point. You should also look at references. You should also look at how the person was in the interviews and what everyone else thought of that person. So take everything together.
I always say to people, you're not that experienced necessarily. Like you and I have done, like hundreds, if not thousands of hires. So, and when you see what they are like, and then when they're in action, you get to see the before I made a decision and the after I made a decision, and it just reinforced. So I often tell people to go with your gut, because your gut is saying something's not right, or I don't know if this person's a team player, but you don't know how to articulate it yet because you don't have enough data points to figure out this. Years later, you'll know why your gut is telling you something. But when you're still a novice in making decisions, I like to tell people, go with your gut. This will help you.
Yeah. So usually your gut gives you an indication. However, again, um, trust in the other data points, like particularly the psychometric assessment, because maybe there may be information in there that you're not aware of, because our gut can be wrong. And if you
Yes,
make
I
if
and
yeah,
and
if you
I
make the wrong mistake, if you make a
yes,
mistake, it can
yes,
be
yes.
expensive.
But that's where they'll have you to help them guide their gut. When my husband and I had our engineering company, we thought, okay, we gotta cover all our bases. You only see that person for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, and you're going
Right.
to base your decision on that unless you bring them back. Yes, use all of the different data points. So we got into doing psychometric testing, and we found this one out of Pittsburgh that was free, which because I was a novice in those days, turned out to be strong inventory modified. And
Okay.
so we'd say, see, they are a team player, or see, they're
Yeah.
narcissistic, and they really want to be, like
Yeah.
looked upon as gods. So no, they're not a team player. We will pass on this person,
Yeah.
because you don't often see that in that conversation.
Yeah.
As you say, use all your data points. But I also say, go with your gut. If there's something about this that's going to make you do things, add up all the factors and then allow that gut to kick in as well.
Hmm.
Not primarily. I want to talk about helping people understand the value of retaining staff, because we're talking about recruiting, but I want people not to have to be in a position where they're continually turning over and having to hire people. So I want us to talk a little bit to help our business owners and human resources talk about the cost of when somebody leaves. So I'll let you go first with your statistics, and I'll validate them or add a few to your thoughts.
So the thing is, the bottom line is it's expensive losing someone. I've seen data that ranges from 40 to 50% of a person's salary all the
Yep,
way to 300%.
exactly.
I honestly, I don't know what's right, because I haven't done any of these statistical studies. But if you look at it and you think, okay, when you hire someone, and let's say you're giving the person 3 months, okay, the cost of that includes 3 months of salary, 3 months of benefits, training, any onboarding costs, any recruiting costs, whether it's internal or external.
Yep.
And then you also have to think about, which people don't consider, legal costs. Let's say the person takes you to court or there's a legal battle initiated. There's that.
Mhm.
So besides the legal costs, there may be other costs associated with the business. Maybe now you have to pay a severance fee, a severance cost. There could be all sorts of things. So, whether it's, 40% of someone's salary or whether it's 300%, it just depends on what your particular, what it ends up being for you. But the bottom line is it's costly and no one wants that. And it's important to take steps to make sure in advance that you're with the right person. So I like to I use dating as an analogy. So you're not going to date someone and then all of a sudden, like 2 times, and then get married. I know there's a little difference between getting married and hiring someone, but the bottom line is, like, you want to take your time. You want to make sure that you're doing things properly.
Yep.
God forbid a marriage doesn't work out, it gets expensive. The same sort of thing when you recruit the wrong person, it can
Yep.
get expensive.
Yep. Yep. So we're talking about hiring right, and we're talking about retaining people. And to your data points, I would add productivity. When you hire a new person, their productivity level isn't the same as the person who was there for 6 years doing that job. So there's a cost of that person may take 6 months, a year to get up to speed to where that other person was, and that affects your billability, your billable hours, etc., or your customer service, losing customers because that person's still learning how to work faster or smarter or whatever.
Right.
So there's that cost, and those data points, which I study, is about 150% for somebody in, I would say, a technical admin level and role. And when you get into the project manager role, that can be 2.5 times salary. When you get to the senior role, or in particular, a salesperson who's doing really well, you're looking at 3.5 times salary. And if I use the analogy as, you've got your best salesperson, and they're making, like, say they're making maybe $200,000 in sales a year for you. And now you've lost that person and you're looking for somebody to replace that person.
Yeah.
That person's not going to make $200,000 a year for it. They're probably going to they'll probably make their first sale in 4 months after they hired. And then by the time they're into it a year, maybe they'll be at that same level that other person. So think
Yeah.
of all that revenue lost. And that's where that 3.5 times salary factor comes in. So just,
Not only that, but to your point earlier about impacting culture. So the more critical the role, in particular, the more senior the role, if you're hiring a CEO, COO, something like that, and you hire the wrong person, well, what does that impact have on the business in terms of culture? In terms of it, so let's say you hire a CEO who just is not the right fit for the business and ends up causing a lot of people to leave. Well, it's not just that person. It's so you haven't just gotten rid of the cost of having to get rid of a CEO. Now, maybe, I don't know, I'm making this up. Let's say 5 people leave. Now
yeah.
you've got to replace 5 people, or you've demoralized the team. Well, what's the cost of that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because sometimes people don't see HR as, they don't understand the return on investment in investing in using HR and HR people within their organization and externally, because people will pay money if they have to. So if you terminate somebody and it's a
Yeah, yeah,
severance and they're not happy, you're going to pay it. But if you could have created a culture where people want to stay, and you don't have 2 more terminations or 2 more people leaving your company a year, that's a cost savings. But that's not predictable, right? So how do you know? You only know when you have to pay it. So I applaud business leaders who understand the value of pay it forward kind of thing. If you spend a little bit of money now creating a healthy, positive work culture, the times you're going to need somebody to recruit or to terminate are fewer because you put that money into creating something that is a better return on investment. But that's just a philosophy that I have: create a healthy work culture, and that's my business, right? I help people create healthy work cultures. Um, so I want to go now to talking about maybe compensation. I think that's something that people who are in the business, but they don't have the data points that and knowledge that we have, and they say, well, how do I know that I'm compensating competitively? Oftentimes a new business owner might say, oh, so what are you making? Okay, we can offer them 10% more or
yeah.
15, but is that enough? So what tips and knowledge can you share with our listener viewers, Jason?
So if you're replacing an existing role, you should have a good sense in terms of what the market is. You'll find out from your staff, your competitors, what people are being paid. So I think for that, for the most part, there should be good data. You can also you can ask your network as well for information. Partner with a recruiter to get a sense as to whether compensation is fair. In fact, I had a chat with one of my someone in my network today who's looking to hire, a salesperson. I gave him a sense as to what would be a fair salary, as well as also what this is for a salesperson, so salary as well as also the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that we can provide as well is, so we also get some insight talking to a lot of different candidates. So we've got a broader sense. So rather than just within that
Yeah,
industry,
exactly.
I talk to a lot of people, just like I'm sure you do. So we know, based on talking to all these people, what a fair range is. A last piece of information that business owners might want to consider, HR people, there's other sources like salary guides. There's websites you can go to get some information. Everything from the government to private companies that do have this information. So there's lots of sources available. And
Yeah.
where I recommend really using this is if it's a brand new role and you're unsure, leverage all these sources, because you're going to be wondering what should I pay? And also, if it's a brand new role, go in with an open mindset. So what I mean by that is, have a broader range. So if you were thinking of, for example, paying between $80,000 and $100,000 for a role, and you thought that was fair, maybe it's not the right range. Maybe the actual range is between 90 and 120,000, depending on
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So go in with a broader range, $80,000 to $120,000, and just expect to pay at the top end and be delighted when maybe you don't have to pay so much. But that's a way to get to see what's out there and get the talent that you want, but don't yet have an understanding as to what you have to pay.
Yeah. And just to add on to compensation, certain industries have certain industry surveys that do salary guides. So go into Google and Google your industry salary guide. And
Yep.
then there are certain big companies who every year you can get a salary guide on the admin person, the finance person, the marketing person.
Yeah,
I won't
exactly.
name names because I don't want to play favorites, but
Yeah.
I encourage everybody, Google salary guides.
Very easy.
And admin, and you'll find some of the top 3 names that I always download every year.
Yeah.
So, the last thing I want to talk about is about the recruitment agencies. The government was concerned about temporary agencies that hire migrant workers to fill in certain kinds of roles during high seasons and low seasons. So we call them temporary recruitment agencies, in that they hire temporary staff. And in July, there was an announcement of legislation that was going to regulate the recruitment agencies. Jason and some other people created a group to basically say, hey, this has implications for other, like for recruiting agencies. And so I'm going to let you share that journey, because it really was impacting on many people in the HR field, and saying, so do I have to do this? Don't I have to do this? And I'm going to let you share the story, because you are one of the leaders of this committee.
Yeah, thanks. So it's Bill 27. So the government, unbeknownst to me and the team, a couple years ago, they consulted with industry association, unions, a few other groups about some concerns they had in the industry. So particularly what they were saying, and it applied to temporary foreign workers, so people who worked on farms or in seasonal places like Blue Mountain, for example. What happened is they were coming in and there were a few firms that were charging them fees, taking away their passports, as well as also underpaying them, which is not right. And so the government, unfortunately, saw this problem as being an industry-wide problem, which is not true. So
Correct.
there's firms, there are recruiting firms that deal with only bringing in these temporary foreign workers, where the problems were. And then there's recruiting firms like myself who focus on permanent placement. So with us, we only deal with businesses. Businesses hire us to do a job for them, to do a search. We never get involved with paying any employees. And so what we've done is there was a team that formed, and through lobbying over the past 3 months, we were actually able to get an extension, a 6-month extension. The government understood our concerns. They saw that there were problems in the original legislation. And so they've agreed to extend the deadline out 6 months while they rework the legislation. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like 6 months from now. We have some sort of idea. Until something is in writing, we don't know. But the bottom line is, target the recruiting firms that are the problem. And those are the ones that deal with temporary foreign workers.
Yeah.
The other ones, we understand there's going to need to be some licensing. We're okay with that, but just make it fair for us. And the problem was, the legislation was going to put a lot of us out of business. It wasn't fair because it created costs for us.
And if I can add to that, and that legislation was to come into place by December of this year, 2023.
Actually, January 1st.
Okay,
Yeah,
January. Well, if you don't have it, if you don't have it processed by December 31st, you're out of luck. But you're right.
exactly.
So in that, recruiters, and it could be like, for example, I don't do active recruiting, but I have colleagues who do. They were required to license $750 annually. And on top of that, and this is the part that puts people out of business, is that you had to provide $25,000 put into some security, i.e. a bank, and you would never be able to touch that $25,000.
That's correct.
To pay in case you got penalized for this migrant worker dilemma. Right. And as Jason said, people who are permanently hiring are arm's length. They never get involved with the employment once the employment contract is done, whereas this temporary was being the employer, so to speak. And as a result, many smaller firms like Jason's would be out of business, because how many people can afford $25,000 set aside that you can't even touch to build your business?
And not just that, but there were also fees associated with that as well. So in order for the banks to hold our money, there would be thousands of dollars every year paid to the banks just to manage our own money. So there was red tape, there was cost. And the Ford government is supposed to be for the little guy, for the small business person. And it was completely against their whole character. So, when I heard about this, I ended up teaming with a bunch of other people. There was a group of 6 of us or 7 of us, and we met weekly and lobbied the government. And through our discussions, we were again able to get them to hopefully change their mind, at least give us an extension, and hopefully we see, some correction, some fairness in the legislation next year.
Yes, and I think I read the article where you were mentioned in there that this is an extension till July 1st, and that they will, what they said, reframe this, because to me, it's not just putting recruiters out of business. It's companies that are small to medium-sized business owners who would use a company like yours now have to go with a larger company, and that company may not give them what is that complete peace of mind recruiting service. The personalized service, different
exactly.
So this was not a win-win situation for businesses, whether you were a recruiting business or whether you were a business owner wanting to have peace of mind and find somebody who was qualified to help you with the recruiting. So this is why I wanted you to come on the show quickly, because this news is just created a sigh of relief for many of my colleagues. They're waiting. Hilda, when you hear anything, tell me. So I will be saying, hey, come listen to the podcast. Oh, yeah. Jason and I have a conversation about this, so we can all just really see this as an opportunity, a win-win. So I'd like to thank you and your committee for stepping up and making themselves known and aware to the government, and for the government to thank them for listening and saying, okay, yeah, let's hold back and let's just assess what this is really all about, because they didn't hear all of the stakeholders as far as I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you. Any other tips and strategies in general about recruiting? While I've got you here and my audience is saying, wow, this has been really, really helpful for me in hiring, because I don't really want to get involved, but I'm thankful I heard the information to make me a smarter person in terms of recruiting staff.
I would say, if someone is interested in, if someone needs help hiring, talk to, just like anything else, talk to different recruiters. So if you're going to hire a plumber, you're going to talk to probably 3 different plumbers. Talk to different recruiters and get a sense as to which one is right for you, because you want to understand things like their fees, the recruiting process, their knowledge, their responsiveness, and
Yeah.
anything else that's important
Mm,
to you. And above all, you also have to feel like there's a fit with the person, that you can actually work with this person. So just
exactly.
consider all those factors and find someone who's right for you.
You did mention fee, and I'm sure people are saying, what is the fee?" Because some people have never worked with a recruiter, and I know that there seems to be some shift. For a long time, it's been fee based on a contingency plan, but I know some people are doing different. So, can you tell me? Can you share with us what people might expect when they're talking to a recruiter? You can talk about yours, or in generalities, the different options that people may come up with when they're trying to set fees.
So in general, there's two types of recruiters. You can either have contingency or retained. Contingency means you typically don't pay them a fee until the person is hired. You would have a bunch of firms on working together on the same search. The challenge with that is they may contact the same people. If they're not going to get paid, they can take off. There's all sorts of challenges associated with that. A retained typically means you're working exclusively with a firm who will look after your best interests. Um, Fees can range depending on who you work with. And historically, it's been a percentage. So
Mhm.
it's ranged anywhere from 15 to 35%, depending on who you work with. Obviously,
Of the
the low
salary
of the
an annual
salary,
salary.
yeah, annual salary. In some firms base it on salary plus bonus, so total compensation.
Mhm.
The higher end firms like will get into, they'll charge the 35%, but they'll focus on C-suite typically, as well as also executive or senior roles. Um, my approach has been to make it simple. So one of the challenges with percentage is you don't know, you base your fee on the beginning, and you don't know what the final fee is until the candidate signs.
Mhm.
So you could be paying more than what you expected. My approach is I just keep it simple. There's a fee. I just base it on a flat fee up front. So the fee in the beginning is the same fee at the end. The fee is the fee. And I prefer doing that. And I know my clients prefer that as well. It's just, again, going to peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. How do people get a hold of you, Jason?
People can reach me through email at jason@noblesearchgroup.com. So NOBLE, searchgroup.com, or you can visit my website, noblesearchgroup.com.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing and dialoguing, I guess, because both of us know the recruiting industry, and sharing your expertise and your insights into the world of recruiting to hopefully reduce the number of headaches our listeners have when they're in the throes of trying to find people in their industry. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time, Hilda.
And thank you again. Thanks to those of you who are listening. I hope you found this really insightful, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to help demystify recruiting for you and to share with you this interesting piece of legislation, which now has a little bit more reprieve until July. So I'll be sending this out to my HR colleagues to say, hey, you want to listen to the latest tips? Jason's going to share that with you. So have a great day, everybody, and thanks for listening. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to hear more about experts in the field to help you build a better business. Thank you for tuning in to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date with all of our latest episodes. For more HR tips, strategies, and to learn how you can create a people-centric workplace, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.